On the second day of my marriage, I didn't make dinner for my sister-in-law, who was engrossed in her iPhone, and my husband, Mark, immediately slapped me across the face. Without hesitating, I grabbed a bowl of hot New England clam chowder and threw it directly at his head. With a voice as cold as ice, I said, "If one more person dares to touch me today, I'll turn this house into a crime scene." I became the daughter-in-law of this house less than 2 days ago, but I already understood everything. Some marriages don't need years to show their true colors. It only takes one dinner, one look, one seemingly insignificant word to crumble the entire veneer of sweet promises that turned out to be just a thin coat of paint. That night, in a sprawling 3-story luxury home on a quiet street in Ski Blythe, Greenwich, Connecticut, the atmosphere of the wedding still lingered. In the Blogano living room, the just married banner hadn't been taken down yet. The floral arrangements in the corner of the room were starting to wilt, but still gave off a soft scent. I was standing in the kitchen, holding the heavy pot of chowder I'd just taken off the burner. Beads of sweat formed on my forehead. The dining room table was almost ready. Only the plates and silverware needed to be set. In the dining room, my husband, Mark, was sitting at the head of the table. To his right sat my mother-in-law, Eleanor, and to his left, his sister, Emily. Emily was sitting with her legs crossed on the chair, her eyes glued to her phone screen. She had one AirPod in. A reality TV show was playing on her screen, and a shrill laugh erupted from the phone speaker in the middle of the calm family dinner, drilling into my ears and causing irritation. As soon as I placed the pot on a trivet on the table, Mark's cold, sharp voice rang out, "Sarah, are you blind?" I froze and turned to look at him. Mark's face was shadowed, his brow furrowed, at the bridge of his nose, as if I had committed a terrible act. I asked, trying to remain calm, "What did you say, honey?" Mark pointed at Emily. "Don't you see Emily sitting there? Can't you serve the tout table?" I followed his gaze. Emily was sitting very close to the sideboard where all the sideboard bowls were ready. She only had to lean forward slightly to serve her own food, but Emily remained completely indifferent. Her fingers continued to swipe across the screen as if nothing happening in that house had anything to do with her. I said quietly, "The pot and bowls are right next to Emily. I think she can serve herself." Mark hit the table with his spoon and fork. That dry sound made the air in the Plaschens dining room seem to freeze. "You think?" He curled his lips into a cynical smile. "You've only been in this house for 2 days, and you already dare to talk back to me with an 'I think'?" I looked at him, and something inside me started to slowly boil. Just yesterday, this man was holding my hand in front of all the guests and family, promising to respect me, love me, and build a worthy home with me. And today, just over a deed, a bowl of soup, his tone changed as if we were strangers. My mother-in-law intervened with a measured voice. Her voice, as usual, was smooth. All right, that's enough. They just got married. Sarah isn't used to the Prodic rules here yet. Sarah, honey, please serve Emily a bowl of chowder. It's always been done this way here. The new wife should attend to her sister-in-law. It's the right thing to do." She spoke sweetly, but there was nothing sweet about her gaze. It was the look of someone used to giving orders with such softness that it was difficult to refuse them. I bit my lip and approached the sideboard. I took a bowl and first served the clam chowder for my mother-in-law. She received the bowl, nodded, and smiled, slightly. Yes, a diligent daughter-in-law like this is what Mom wants. Then I served Mark and placed the bowl in front of him. The expression on his face softened a little, as if he had won a small, pleasant chess match. When I placed the bowl in front of Emily, she looked at it sideways and frowned. "Sis, this is too little, and I'm starving," she said, without looking at me. She said it so naturally, as if I had been born solely to serve her entire family. I went back and added half a ladle more. Only then did Emily smile, condescendingly. "Thanks, sis." But her eyes never left her phone. I sat in my spot. The food on my plate was still steaming, but suddenly I felt a knot in my throat. Everyone started eating. Mark took a piece of bread, chewed it, and delivered his verdict. "Next time, don't make it so salty." "My family doesn't like salty food," I replied quietly. "Okay." A few moments later, my mother-in-law spoke again. "Sarah, how many days off do you have for the wedding?" I replied. 2 weeks. She nodded. Not bad. During these 2 weeks, you can adapt to the house and learn to manage the household. Soon, Mark will go back to work. I'm not young anymore, and Emily is busy with her grad school classes. It seems all the household chores will fall on your shoulders. I raised my head. Yes, Eleanor, but when my PTO ends, I have to go back to work. I have a project that's in the delivery phase. I can't be away for too long. The spoon in Mark's hand stopped halfway to his mouth. He raised his head and looked at me. "Go back to work?" I was a little surprised. "Yes, we talked about it before we got married." Mark smiled disdainfully. "Before we got married?" "Yes, that was before the wedding. Now that you're my wife, everything has to change." I could clearly hear my heart rate accelerating. "What do you mean?" He leaned back in his chair. His voice sounded so indifferent, it made me shiver. "I mean, you should leave your job. Whether you transfer to a more relaxed position or resign completely. Stay home and take care of the family. My mother is getting older. Emily is busy with her master's. My own job is very stressful. This house needs a woman who knows how to run a home." I looked at him in shock, thinking I had misheard. "Are you asking me to quit my job?" Mark replied calmly. "Yes. I see that at your job you only work overtime. Coming home late isn't appropriate for a married woman. What kind of family would that be?" I put my silverware down on the table. My hands went cold. "This is a job where I've been busting my back for 5 years. I'm about to be promoted to team lead. Why are you suddenly forcing me to quit?" Before Mark could answer, Emily interrupted, still holding her cell phone. I think Mark is right, sis. A woman after getting married should take care of the house, not disappear all day at work. Who's going to cook? Who's going to take care of the husband? Who's going to give birth and raise the kids later on? I turned toward her. Her face was young, her lips painted a bright carmine, and her nails decorated with a complex manicure, but the words she spoke dragged the complex manicure, trace of an antiquated and suffocating stereotype. My mother-in-law added slowly, "Don't think I'm old-fashioned, dear. But a woman's happiness lies in a strong family, in a cozy home. No matter how good your professional career is, if you can't create comfort at home, there will be no happiness." I felt the corner of my mouth tremble. I tried to speak calmly. "I've never thought that work and family were mutually exclusive. I can find a balance." Mark let out a cold laugh. "How are you going to find it? Hugging your laptop all day, leaving in the morning and coming back at night. Sarah, I'll be direct with you. This house doesn't need a wife who is constantly missing in action. I need a woman who knows how to take care of her husband, attend to his mother, and know her obligations. Those words, know her obligations, fell onto the table like a heavy slab. I looked at the man in front of me. It was the same face I had trusted, the one I had considered my support for life. But just one day after the wedding, his mask of sweetness broke, revealing a cold, dominant, and despotic stranger. I took a deep breath and heard my own voice, low but firm. And what if I don't agree? The dining table went silent. Mark looked at me, and his gaze began to darken. At that moment, I understood that this dinner would no longer be just any dinner. The tension at the table became palpable. I looked at Mark, and he looked at me as if I were someone who had committed an unforgivable sin. A minute ago, I was still trying to believe that this was simply our first argument as a married couple, that if I explained everything well, he would understand. But his look made me realize it wasn't about understanding. It was about his desire for me to submit unconditionally. Mark placed his hands on the edge of the table. His voice was ice cold. You have to agree. I already told you that in this house, a wife who disappears from morning till night, forgetting her husband and her family, will not be tolerated. I gripped the fork in my hand tighter. I'm not forgetting anyone. I just want to keep working. Before we got married, you yourself said you valued that. Mark smiled sarcastically. You really believed the words from before the wedding? Yes, that was then. This is now. Those words were like an invisible slap that landed squarely on my face. I could clearly hear my runaway heartbeat in my chest, a mixture of pain and rage. It turned out that all the bouquets of flowers he brought to my office, all the times he waited for me in the rain after overtime, all the promises that after we got married, I could keep pursuing my dreams. Everything was just a trap to drag me into this marriage. My mother-in-law put her bowl down on the table. Her voice was low, but every one of her words was sharp as a razor. Sarah, don't be stubborn. Women don't compete for a job position, but to see who has a better husband and a stronger family. You're young. Stop working for a process. Few years. Have children. Organize the home. And then you'll think about what you want to do. It's not too late. I turned toward her. Eleanor says it very easily, but the one who loses the job is me, and the one who risks her future is also me. Eleanor's face darkened. Is that how you speak to your mother-in-law? I took a deep breath. I didn't want to argue with her, much less turn dinner into a battlefield. But every word from them seemed to push me step by step toward the edge of the abyss. Emily, resting her chin on her hand, smiled maliciously. Why so much tension? Sis, our family has enough money. You don't need to kill yourself working. If I were you, I'd be delighted. I turned and looked her directly in the eyes. That's you, not me. Emily's eyes flashed with fury immediately. Mark, did you hear what she said? Mark jumped up. The chair behind him slid and fell with a loud crash on the black hardwood floor. He circled the table and stopped right in front of me. His tall silhouette loomed over me, causing a feeling of suffocation. He hissed between his teeth. I'm telling you for the last time. After your wedding leave, you go to the office and write your resignation letter. I've already planned everything. You will stay home, cook, take care of my mother, and keep an eye on Emily. Then we'll think about children. I raised my head and stared him straight in the eyes. And my life? Mark? He frowned. What did you say? I repeated more clearly. What about my life? I studied and worked for years. What did I fight for? So that after getting married, I would become a servant in Saint-Bear, my own house? Mark's face changed. I saw his jaw tense and his fists clench. Eleanor hurried to mediate. Calm down, kids. Sarah, don't talk like that. In what house does a newly arrived wife not learn to manage household? Shorties. I smiled slightly. For the first time since I entered that house, I no longer wish to keep the mask of politeness. Learning to manage a home is one thing, Eleanor, but being forced to leave my slashin' job and allow others to decide my future is something very different. Mark leaned toward me, his voice choked with rage. Don't disrespect me. If I can't talk to you nicely, don't blame me if I get violent. I stood up. The distance between us was no more than the width of a hand. My heart was beating wildly, but my mind was extraordinarily lucid. I don't need you to talk to me nicely or badly. I need you to understand one thing. I am not someone whose life you can plan at your whim. Emily slammed her hand on the table. What kind of wife is this? On the second day of marriage, she already dares to talk back to her husband and mother-in-law. What bad luck we've had with you. I turned to her. Bad luck or not, we'll see about that. As soon as I said that, Mark angrily pointed at the pot of clam chowder. Wow, how brave you've become. Then go right now and serve more soup to Emily, and then serve the rest of us. I want to see how much longer you're going to keep being so stubborn. I followed the direction of his hand. The chowder was still steaming. The dinner remained almost untouched, but in my eyes, everything had changed. This table was no longer a dining table. It was the place where they tried to break my will, through small orders, through words, through what they called family rules. I said slowly, separating each word. Emily has hands, my mother-in-law has hands, and you have hands too. No one here is disabled. The whole room froze. Mark's face reddened with anger. I knew I had wounded his pride, a pride that had always been backed by his mother and sister. Eleanor opened her mouth to say something but didn't have time. Emily jumped up and pointed at me. Watch what you say. I didn't look at her. I just kept my gaze fixed on Mark. In that moment, I saw, clearly in his eyes, not just annoyance, but the fury of a man used to controlling everything, who for the first time was facing resistance. Understood that this wouldn't end with just words. At the same time, I realized that, starting with this dinner, my marriage had officially fallen into an abyss of no return. Mark stared at me. His look seemed to want to consume me. I had never seen him so openly aggressive. The sweetness, the attention, and the charm that had once conquered me had vanished without a trace, leaving in front of me a man who wanted to win at all costs. He hissed between his teeth. Sarah, dare to repeat that. I remained standing, motionless, clearly hearing the beating of my own heart, but my voice sounded extraordinarily calm. I said that no one in this house has problems with their hands. Whoever wants to eat can serve the soup and plates themselves. I am your wife, not the maid for the whole family. Eleanor slapped the table, raising her voice. What audacity on your part. You just entered this house as a wife, and you already behave with such insolence. Emily jumped up, her face inflamed. Mark is condescending to our whole family, and you're just going to stand there watching? I turned to Emily. Since the beginning of dinner, she hadn't touched the ladle once. She hadn't even served herself water. but she spoke as if she were deeply offended. I smiled sideways. I'm only telling the truth. Your whole family has decided to turn the simple act of serving a bowl of soup into a test, to force me to submit, right? Mark took another step forward. The distance between us reduced so much I could see the veins in his neck bulging. He pronounced every word, emphasizing it. You think you're the smartest one here? On the second day of marriage, you're already trying to walk all over your husband. I raised my head. I'm not walking over anyone. I'm simply not going to kneel. As soon as I said that, the room exploded. Emily pointed her finger at me. Mom, look. She really has no breeding. Eleanor paled and looked at Mark. Son, look, I already told you this girl is too stubborn. If she isn't educated from the beginning, later on she won't respect anyone. I looked at her, and a chill ran down my spine. I thought my mother-in-law was a calm and sensible woman. Now I understood that her sweetness wasn't to show love, but to cover up a form of oppression much more subtle. Mark looked back at the pot of clam chowder on the table and yelled, All right, you don't want to serve the plates or the soup? I didn't move from my spot. He pointed at me. I told you to serve the soup too, Emily, I responded. If she's hungry, let her serve it herself. Emily's shrill laugh drilled into my ears. Do you think you're still the little princess in your mother's house? I turned to her. No, but I know for sure that I am not a maid in my husband's house. In that instant, Mark suddenly raised his hand. Everything happened very fast. I only managed to see his hand cross before my eyes, and immediately the sound of a loud, dry slap broke the silence of the room. My left cheek burned. I stumbled from the force of the blow. My ears rang, and my vision darkened for a few seconds. I stood motionless, leaning one hand on the edge of the table. I felt as if a bucket of ice water had been thrown over my head. I couldn't believe it. The man who yesterday held my hand in front of our families, today during a family dinner and in front of his mother, sister, hit me without hesitation. Mark remained standing in the same position, his chest heaving with heavy breathing. I'm telling you for the last time, serve the soup. I turned slowly toward him. I felt half my cheek in flames. The pain was so intense, it became dull. But what hurt the most was that inside, something had broken completely. There were no longer doubts, nor regrets, nor desires to keep deceiving myself. This man didn't love me. This house didn't accept me. The only thing they needed was an obedient wife who served, shut up, and put up with it. Eleanor feigned astonishment. Oh my God, Mark, how could you hit your wife? Inside the house? But she limited herself to saying that without taking a single step to help me, and Emily opened her eyes wide to look at me. Then she looked at her brother, and finally, her lips curved into a smile of satisfaction. She said in a low voice, but I could hear her perfectly, You deserve it. I removed my hand from the table and slowly straightened up. I didn't cry. It was strange. At that moment, I couldn't cry. Maybe when they hurt you in such a blatant way, tears stop being necessary. I touched my cheek. 5 distinct, hot fingers burned on my skin. I asked in a whisper, Did you really just hit me? Mark looked at me without an ounce of guilt. I hit you so you'd smarten up in this house. You have to know whose word carries weight. I nodded. Yes, I've realized that now. I turned around and walked toward the kitchen. Behind me, I still heard Emily's mocking voice. If you had obeyed from the beginning, it wouldn't have hurt so much. I didn't answer. I went straight to the kitchen and stopped in front of the pot of clam chowder that was still steaming. The hot steam seemed to burn my eyes. I looked at the trembling surface of the chowder. Then I looked at my reflection in the glass door of the cupboard. My left cheek was already completely welln. In that precise instant, I ceased to be a newlywed. I was simply a woman who had just been abruptly torn from a mistaken dream. I stood in the kitchen, leaning both hands on the cold marble countertop. From the dining room came voices, the subtle clinking of plates, the scraping of a cross chair being dragged, and Emily's cynical laugh. All of that drilled into my brain like little needles. I felt my left cheek burning. The pain was so sharp that even blinking hurt. But what caused me a frigid cold wasn't the physical pain, but the certainty that I had just seen the true face of that entire family. I leaned over and served a ladle of clam chowder into a bowl. The soup was still burning hot, steam rising. I looked at the trembling surface and suddenly saw my blurry reflection in it. This face no longer looked like that of the girl who, yesterday morning, wore a wedding dress, believing she was entering a warm home. Behind me, a voice resonated. "Serve it already. Why are you standing there?" It was Mark. I didn't turn around. I just listened to his voice, hearing that habitual tone of command, as if the fact of having hit me a moment ago were the Taofru's most normal thing in the world. I asked in a whisper barely audible, "Don't you think you've crossed the line?" Mark let out a cold laugh. "If you had behaved well, nothing would have happened." I gripped the handle of the ladle. Suddenly, I realized that for a man like him, good and bad meant nothing. The only thing that mattered to him was obedience. Eleanor approached the kitchen door. Her voice was loud enough to demonstrate. She was trying to mediate the conflict. "That's enough, children. Everything must be resolved little by little. Sarah, you are also too stubborn. Your husband is very temperamental. If you had given in a little, we wouldn't have reached this point." I turned around and looked at her. "Mother-in-law, you ask me to give in. If today I give in with words, tomorrow I will give in to blows, and the day after, tomorrow, I will be giving in my whole life." Eleanor stayed silent. Perhaps she didn't expect me to dare say something like that so directly. Emily shouted from outside, "Look at her. She plays the victim. Nobody hits you without reason. You are insolent. Teaching you a lesson is the right thing to do." I chuckled in a way that made the three of them fall silent suddenly. So in this house, hitting the wife is called teaching a lesson. Mark's face darkened. "Watch your words." I took the full bowl of clam chowder and walked slowly toward the dining room. The three of them watched me. My steps were slow, firm. I placed the bowl on the settee table, not in front of Emily, but right in the center. "The soup is here. Whoever wants to eat, serve it yourself." Mark slammed the table hard. "Sarah, I wasn't scared anymore." Curiously, after the slap, the fear I felt seemed to have been consumed completely. The only thing remaining was a cold, crystalline lucidity. I stared straight into his eyes. "Listen to me very well. That I have given in does not mean I am wrong. That I remain silent does not mean I am afraid. This slap has been the first and the last. As soon as you dare to touch me like that again," Emily jumped up. "You still dare to raise your voice?" I turned to her. "And you, starting now, stop addressing me with that tone of order. I have no obligation to serve you. Seeing the situation getting out of control, Eleanor softened her tone. Sarah, Heaven, don't get carried away by anger. I know you are hurt, but you just integrated. Little by little you will do it. What family doesn't have arguments? I looked at her, and my heart froze. If I hadn't seen everything with my own eyes, perhaps I would have continued letting myself be deceived by that supposed sweetness. I responded. An argument happens when both parties commit an error. But here, you only want to force me to submit. Mark approached, apparently with the intention of stopping me, but this time I took a step back. Keeping my distance, and without taking my eyes off him, I said, with total clarity, "Don't come near me." Perhaps it was the tone of my voice that left him paralyzed, not because he realized his error, but because he understood that I was no longer the submissive girl who had entered his house yesterday. I dragged a chair over, sat on the edge, and took my cell phone out of my pocket. The screen illuminated my hand. Mark frowned. "What are you planning to do?" I turned on the front camera. I saw with total sharpness the marks of the 5 fingers on my cheek. The skin was reddened and slightly swollen. I took a photo, then another. Emily opened her eyes wide. "What are you taking photos of?" Without raising my head, I replied, "The evidence." The room plunged into absolute silence. I raised my head and looked at Mark. "Remember my face like this, because from this moment on, nothing you say or do to me will go unpunished." Mark's expression changed. Eleanor couldn't maintain her composure either. I understood that for the first time, they were beginning to realize that I wouldn't let myself be intimidated or silenced. And I, at the same time, understood clearly that this battle had only just begun. After taking some photos, I turned off the phone screen and placed it on the placed-it table. The room remained in sepulchral silence. Mark was still standing in front of me with an expression that mutated from anger to astonishment, and then darkened again. It was as if they had thrown a bucket of ice water on him. Probably, he didn't expect me to go that far. He was used to giving orders and seeing obedience. Used to the fact that after his outbursts of anger, the whole family hurried to calm him down. So seeing me coldly record that slap started to make him lose the initiative. The first to speak was Eleanor. Her voice still tried to sound soft, but the tension was evident. "Sarah, what does this mean? Don't take domestic problems out of the house. Who photographs something like that?" I looked at her. "Precisely because it is a domestic matter, I must keep it so, that later no one says I invented it, or that I fell alone." Emily curled her lips. "You're making drama over a simple slap. You're making too much noise, as if they had beaten you with sticks." I turned to her. "A single slap has been enough to make me see where I am." Mark breathed deep and smiled cynically. "Very well. You like to exaggerate things?" "Yes," I responded. "The one who isn't exaggerating is me." "You were the first to raise your hand." He narrowed his eyes. "And what is it that you want?" I straightened up and looked at him unblinkingly. "I want you to apologize." Emily let out a shrill laugh, as if she had heard the funniest joke in the world. "Keep dreaming, sis." Eleanor also frowned. "Sarah, don't cross the line." Mark was upset. "And you showed yourself very obstinate. That's why I couldn't contain myself. You just got married. Why are you making a mountain out of a molehill?" I responded, emphasizing every word. "I'm not making a mountain out of anything. It is you who try to downplay something that is under no concept a small thing." Mark dragged a chair and sat down. but not because he had calmed down, but to recover his position of dominance. He crossed his arms, and his voice became even easier. You want an apology? Very well. I stayed quiet for a moment. Not because I believed it, but because I sensed a trap. And indeed, he continued. But first, you must admit your mistake. Apologize to my mother. Apologize to Emily for your rude behavior, and then promise that you will never again talk back to your husband in front of the family. I looked at him and suddenly felt a mixture of bitterness and amusement. So, you hit me, but I am the one who must apologize first? Mark replied with total naturalness. If you hadn't provoked my anger, nothing would have happened. Now I truly understood. The problem wasn't that he didn't know he was wrong. He knew it. But even so, he wanted to twist everything so that I would be the guilty one. I picked up my phone. I didn't even remember at what moment I had activated the voice recorder. Perhaps in the second my cheek burned. My instinct for self-protection activated automatically. I saved the file, naming it Dinner. Day 2. As my fingers slid across the screen, I said, "Go on." I was paying maximum attention. Eleanor's face changed instantly. Are you recording? I raised my head. Yes. Emily paled. I didn't look at her. No. I'm simply learning to protect myself. Mark jumped up. Delete that right now. Or else. I also stood up. This time, without taking a step back. Don't order me around. Again, our gazes crossed. I saw in his eyes not only rage but also the disconcerting confusion of a man who suddenly understands that his victim is no longer going to obey. Eleanor stepped closer quickly, trying to grab my hand, but I dodged her. She stopped and lowered her voice. Sarah, that's enough. Believe me, you're only making things worse for yourself. If the neighbors or relatives find out about this in a newly formed family, who will be the first to face embarrassment? I responded. If you were afraid of embarrassment, Eleanor, you should have stopped your son before he raised his hand. She didn't know how to respond, while Emily looked at Mark with panic. Mark, is she really going to keep all this? What if she sends it to her parents? Hearing that, I felt even colder. It turned out that what they feared most wasn't having hurt me, but that their reputation would be tarnished. I slung my purse over my shoulder. I wasn't going to be able to finish this dinner. Mark blocked my path. Where do you think you're going? I looked at him. To my room, he growled. I don't allow it. I laughed. A short, strange laugh that sounded alien even to me. To go to my own room. Now I need your permission? Having said that, I stepped aside. Mark feinted to grab my arm, but perhaps, remembering the voice recording, hesitated an instant. That fraction of a second was enough for me to pass by and head for the stairs. Behind me came Eleanor's hurried voice. Sarah, wait. I haven't finished talking. Yet, I didn't turn back. I knew that if I stayed there 1 minute more, I would end up crying or saying something even bitterer. And at that moment, what I needed most wasn't to continue the argument, but to calm down and think about what to do next. I went quickly up the stairs, clutching the strap of my purse so tightly my knuckles turned white. Every step felt like treading on a mixture of humiliation and lucidity. I didn't cry, at least until the bedroom door closed behind my back, separating me from the shouts, the clinking of plates, and the held breaths downstairs. Only then did I feel my knees weaken. I leaned against the door, and slid slowly to the cold floor. The rooms still retained the atmosphere of the wedding night. The high thread count sheets hadn't been changed. The congratulations card on the dresser was still intact, and the boxes of wedding gifts were piled in the corner. The small bouquet of flowers on the vanity seemed to mock me. Just yesterday, I thought this room would be the beginning of a new life. Today it was the refuge I had to escape to just to be able to breathe. I took out my cell phone and turned on the front camera again. My left cheek was swollen and increasingly red. The marks of the 5 fingers could be distinguished clearly on the skin. Like a cruel reminder that all this was real, I took some more photos from different angles, and with better light, saving them in a hidden folder. Then I opened the audio recording and listened to it over. Mark's voice, Eleanor's, Emily's. Every word was heard with total clarity. I uploaded everything to the cloud and then sent a copy to Jen, my best friend, with a brief message. "Are you free? I have a serious problem." Jen didn't reply immediately. I knew most likely she was still at the office. I turned off the screen and leaned my head against the wall, trying to order my thoughts. First, save the evidence. Second, keep my job at all costs. Third, not allow them to isolate me in this house. Hardly had I thought it when the mobile vibrated. It wasn't Jen, but a message from my boss, Mr. Thompson. My heart skipped a beat. The message was short. "Sarah, your husband called me yesterday saying you are considering leaving the Power-Says job after getting married. Please confirm this for me." I looked at the screen, and a chill ran down my spine. It turned out Mark didn't just talk. He had already started to act. Even before I set foot in that house, he wanted to cut off my escape routes, turning my resignation into a fait accompli. I called Mr. Thompson immediately. As soon as he answered, I spoke quickly. "Mr. Thompson, I'm sorry to bother you on your day off. I have no intention of leaving my job, and I have never authorized anyone to discuss this matter on my behalf." My boss's voice became serious. "I also thought something didn't fit. That's why I wrote to you. Are you okay?" I stayed quiet for a few seconds. I didn't want to tell him everything over the phone, but I couldn't hide it completely either. "I'm okay, sir. Just some personal matters. I wanted to make sure that after my leave, I will return to work normally." Mr. Thompson replied immediately. "Very well, don't worry. At the company, only your own decision matters." I sighed, relieved. "Yes, thank you, sir." The call ended, but my hands remained icy. If Mr. Thompson hadn't asked me today, perhaps I never would have found out how far Mark planned to go. The more I thought about it, the more my throat closed up. This man didn't just want to control my life. He wanted to strip me of everything that allowed me to fend for myself. Suddenly they knocked on the door. "Sarah, open up." It was Mark's voice. I stayed seated, immobile. He knocked harder. I said, "Open the door." I continued without answering. An instant later, Eleanor's voice sounded softer, but equally insistent. "Sarah, daughter, open up. I want to talk to you." What happens between husband and wife must be resolved behind closed doors. Don't make things worse. I looked at the door. My mouth was dry. I knew if I opened it now, they wouldn't give me time to think. They would force me to speak, admit guilt, compromise, and if I gave in this time, I would have to give in forever. I approached the door but didn't open it. I said loud enough to be heard, "Outside, I don't want to talk now." When I'm ready, I'll let you know." Outside, there was silence for a moment. Then Mark growled, "Don't play games." I closed my eyes. I had my hand on the doorknob, but my voice, when speaking, again sounded extremely calm. "If you keep pounding on the door, I will keep recording." Behind the door, the silence prolonged for a few seconds. Then I heard Mark's steps walking away. Shortly after, Eleanor followed him. From downstairs came the annoying murmur of Emily. The room returned to silence. I sat on the edge of the bed. I looked at the suitcase in the corner. Half its contents hadn't yet been unpacked after the wedding. For the first time, I thought that maybe it wasn't necessary to unpack it completely. I stayed sitting for a long time on the edge of the bed, contemplating that half-undone suitcase. I had brought it here with all the confidence of a newlywed woman. I planned to place each dress in the walk-in closet, place each object on the shelves, transforming little by little this room into our home. Now, looking at it, I only saw a silent exit waiting for my decision in the corner of the room. The mobile vibrated again. This time it was Jen. As soon as I answered, she riddled me with questions. "Where are you? What's happening? I just saw the photo. Who did that to your face?" Hearing my friend's voice, I got a knot in my throat. I tried to maintain calm. "I'm at my husband's house." Jen let out a curse and then lowered her voice. "It was Mark." "Yes," I responded. "Yes." A single word that seemed to drag all the truth. Upon pronouncing it, I felt my heart get heavy, because until that moment, I hadn't even dared to admit to myself that my marriage had taken such a terrifying turn. Jen kept silent for a few seconds and then asked, "And what are you going to do?" I looked toward the door. "I don't know for sure yet, but I certainly won't stand idly by letting them do what they want." Jen said immediately, "If you need it, come to my house. Don't stay there alone too long." I closed my eyes. "I think so too. But how do I leave? When? I must plan everything well." Jen knows me, so she didn't pressure me. She just added, "Remember one thing, don't delete anything. Photos, recordings, messages, keep it all. And if you feel unsafe, call me immediately." I responded with a dull voice. "Okay." After hanging up, I remained seated. Jen's words, "Don't stay there alone too long," went around in my head. I looked at the closet. In one part hung my ordered clothes. In the other, Mark's. Just yesterday, hanging my dresses. I felt great peace, believing I was opening a new chapter, without suspecting it would start with a slap and absurd demands. I stood up, opened the vanity drawer, and took out a small folder with documents I had brought from my parents' house. There were my driver's license, passport, SSN card, a copy of my savings account info, my employment contract, and other important personal letters. Luckily, I have always been cautious and tend to keep important things close. I checked everything one by one and stored it again, neatly in the folder. Doing this cleared my ideas. I opened my mobile banking app, checked my payroll account, savings, and my small investments. Everything was in its place. Immediately, I changed the passwords for internet banking, email, the phone's lock code. I activated two-step verification. Upon finishing, I felt slight relief in my chest. From downstairs, noises arrived again. It seemed they had finished dinner. The dragging of chairs, the sound of the water faucet, and then Emily's shout, Mom, bring Mark the ibuprofen." I smiled bitterly. Mark was the one who had hit me, but the one the whole family, overwhelmed with attentions, was him. Meanwhile, my cheek remained swollen, and all night no one had asked me if it hurt. I sat back on the bed, turned on the recorder, and listened to the audio from beginning to end. Every time I heard Mark's voice, I felt a layer of illusion fall away. I thought marriage was a place to lean on in difficulties. It turned out that for him, it was a license to control a woman. Hardly had I finished listening to the audio, just when Emily said, "You deserve it," the mobile notified me of a message from my mom. "Daughter, FaceTime us. Tonight. Your dad won't stop asking if you ate well." I looked at the words, and my heart shrank. If she saw my face, my mother would know instantly that something was wrong. I didn't want my parents to find out right now, not to protect my husband's family, but because I needed a clear plan before telling them everything to prevent them from making a scandal out of worry that would worsen the situation. I replied, "Mom, I'm super tired today. Better I call you tomorrow." "Okay," she answered almost instantly. "Rest, daughter. If anything happens, tell us right away." I looked at the message, and my eyes stung. During dinner, I had kept myself so firm I seemed to have no emotions. But a single gesture of affection from my mother made me feel a knot in my throat. I raised my head, breathed deep, and held back the tears. It wasn't time to show weakness. If I wanted to get out of here with dignity, I had to be smarter and colder than all of them. In the hallway, very soft steps were heard suddenly. They weren't Mark's, nor the heavy ones of Eleanor. I held my breath and listened. Then I heard a low voice, but loaded with hatred, right in front of the door. "You think you're very smart?" It was Emily. I remained immobile, without answering. She stayed there a few seconds more and added, "You'll see, in this house, women like you get cured quickly." Her steps moved away downstairs. I looked at the closed door, and my blood froze. They didn't even think about repairing their error. They only thought about how to make me buckle. That meant that under no concept should I show weakness. I reached out, dragged the suitcase near the bed, and opened it carefully. Its familiar aroma of clean clothes and fabric softener hit me. Just yesterday, I folded with care every garment I brought here, separating house clothes, office clothes, and clothes for visits to my parents. Then I believed I was preparing new life. Now I was preparing the path to escape. I didn't take everything out, just selected the essentials, folding it as much as possible. A couple of office suits, comfortable clothes for travel, the document folder, chargers, some basic cosmetics, and necessary medicines. Every object I put in the suitcase cleared my mind more. I knew perfectly well that since I planned to leave, I couldn't let emotions drag me back. The mobile vibrated again. This time it was a message from Mark. "Open the Mark door." I looked at the screen a few seconds and turned it off without answering. Less than a minute later, another message arrived. "Don't cross the line. Let's talk nicely." I smiled bitterly. The one who had hit me was him. The one who had called my boss to process my firing was also him. His whole family cornered me. And now they said I was crossing the line. It was seen that in their eyes any resistance of mine was already considered an excess. I didn't answer. I opened the mobile's notepad and started writing a task list, quickly. 1. Save all evidence. 2. Never get carried away by emotions when talking to husband's family. 3. Leave here at the first safe opportunity. 4. Tomorrow morning. Contact Jen. 5. Look for lawyers if the situation worsens. After writing it, I reviewed the lines and saved the note. I knew I had to act, as if this were an important project, without allowing pain to ruin everything. Because in this battle, if I showed the slightest weakness, they would see it as an opportunity to pressure more. They knocked on the door again. This time it was Eleanor's voice. "Sarah, daughter, I bring you an ointment for your face." I looked at the door with bitterness. If she really cared about me, she would have stopped her son from the beginning. Now, that ointment was just a way to show she wasn't so bad, to have an excuse later to say she had attended to me. I replied through the door, "No need, Eleanor." "Thanks." Eleanor fell silent a few seconds and continued, "After all, you are our daughter-in-law. Let it pass. Let it pass. Let's talk calmly. I know it impressed you, but a married woman must learn to give in a little so there is peace in the home." I closed my eyes, tightening the mobile. Again the word give in. Give in with words. Give in with deeds. Give in to blows. And until when did one have to give in? I said slowly, but with clarity. If you really want there to be peace in this house, mother-in-law, you should have taught Mark not to raise his hand. Outside there was silence. Shortly after, I heard Eleanor's steps moving away, slowly. I stayed, sat on the bed a good while, then got up and went to the bathroom. In the mirror, my left cheek showed a dark purple tone with a slight swelling on the cheekbone. I applied a cold towel. Every contact produced sharp pain, but it was precisely that pain that kept me alert. It reminded me that what happened today wouldn't be erased with half-hearted apologies. I returned to the room, and just as I sat down, Jen video called me. I didn't answer. I just wrote to her. "My face is swollen. Better by chat." She answered instantly. "Can you leave?" I wrote, "Yes, but not now." Jen added, "When you are going to leave, let me know. I'll pick you up or order you an Uber." I looked at the message and felt a little warmth in my chest. In the middle of the chaos, at least I had someone on my side. I responded with one word, "Okay." Then I opened contacts and looked for the number of an old acquaintance named Dave. He was my cousin's husband and worked in corporate law, but knew people. I didn't call him, just contemplated his name a few seconds and memorized it. If the situation worsened, I would need someone who understood laws. At that moment, from downstairs arrived a furious shout from Mark. He seemed angry with his mother and sister for not having managed to make me twist my arm. The blow of something against the table was heard, Emily's justifications, and Eleanor's low, appeasing voice. Everything mixed in a dense, suffocating rumor. I sat in the room listening with a frozen heart. Just 2 days ago, I believed this house would be the beginning of my new life. Now, the simple fact of hearing their voices oppressed my chest and gave me urgency to leave. I secured the door again and pushed the suitcase under the bed. Then I took another large purse and put the rest of documents and some valuables. Afterwards, I put the mobile on silent, leaving active only calls from Jen, my parents, and my boss. Outside, it was already completely dark. The yellowish light from the balcony projected a faint spot in the room. I sat on the bed contemplating the two ready bags and suddenly felt a strange calm. There was no longer the panic of the afternoon nor the shock that made my hands tremble. Instead, there was a cold, dry determination. I knew I had started to leave this marriage the moment I took out the suitcase, and also knew that the next morning wouldn't be easy. That night I barely slept, remained lying on my side on the edge of the bed, eyes wide open looking at the ceiling, attentive to any slight noise in the Plive house that just one day ago I called my husband's home. Sometimes a door creaked on the ground floor. Sometimes heavy steps of Mark from one side to another were heard. Sometimes the broken whispers of Eleanor. The words weren't clear, but it was certain they talked about me. I no longer wanted to guess what they talked about. I only knew that after the slap we were on opposite sides. Close to 11 at night, the mobile lit up again. Mark again. Tomorrow, come down and talk nicely with my mother. I looked at the message a good while and turned off the screen. Talk nicely. The man who had just hit his wife and called her boss to prepare her firing used that word now as if he were sensibility in person. I didn't answer. I knew that the more I exchanged messages, the more risk I ran of falling into his game. Based on provocation, I turned over, took out a small notebook from the purse, and jotted down lines. Quickly. The time of the event, details of the dinner, words of each one I remembered when the slap occurred and what they said afterwards. I didn't want to overlook any detail. Maybe it would be useful, maybe not, but I knew I must register everything. Upon finishing, I closed the notebook. Outside, the street was becoming deserted. The street lamp projected a dim light on the wall opposite. I looked at that light with an empty soul. Just yesterday, I dreamed of quiet days in which I would return from work and someone would wait for me with a little home built on affection. Now the only thing remaining in me was mistrust. Towards dawn, I managed to nod off. Shortly before 6, a knock on the door woke me. Sarah, get up. Daughter, come down to breakfast and let's talk. It was Eleanor. I sat up, looked at the time, and then the 2 bags ready near the bed. I no longer had the doubts of the previous night. I knew today I should go down, not to reconcile, but to listen to what they had to say and make my own decision. I changed clothes, tied my hair in a ponytail, and examined my left cheek in the ponytail. Mirror. The mark was still there, though somewhat paler. I applied a thin layer of makeup, but it didn't cover the fingerprint track completely. In the end, removed the makeup. I didn't want to hide the bruise. While dragging the suitcase to the center of the room to check the zipper, the mobile vibrated. It was Jen. Are you okay? I replied. Coming down now. I'll tell you later. She answered immediately. Don't forget to activate the recorder. I read the words and nodded in silence. Yes. Not because I suspected anything concrete, but because since yesterday I had it very clear. When people are used to submitting others, they try to twist any story in their favor. Voice recorder, pressed record, and put the mobile in my jacket pocket. I opened the door. The second-floor hallway was deserted. From below, in the bold kitchen, the smell of toast and freshly made coffee was already rising. Calmly, I pushed the suitcase against the wall without taking it down yet, and started descending the stairs. As soon as I arrived at the living room, I saw Eleanor sitting with neat gesture at the table before a steaming cup. Opposite was Emily, who didn't hide her look of contempt. Mark occupied the head. His cheek, which yesterday showed slight inflammation without barely redness, gave him an aspect that was simultaneously choleric and pathetic. No one offered me a seat. They just looked at me waiting, to see to what point I was willing to humiliate myself. The first to speak was Eleanor, with paused and firm voice. "Sit down. Today I am going to speak only once. So, it is clear." I pulled up a chair and sat with straight back and hands on my knees. "Yes, Eleanor, say it." She looked at me from top to bottom, stopping her eyes a second on my bruised cheek, and continued. "About yesterday. I don't take anyone's side, but a daughter-in-law must know her place and respect elders. You've been barely any time in this house, and already you have talked back to your husband, your sister-in-law, and your mother-in-law. That isn't done." I kept silent. She continued. "If you really want to continue in this house and live in peace, the first thing you must do is apologize." I raised my eyes. I knew that supposed conciliatory talk would end up being another interrogation disguised as a moral sermon. I looked straight at Eleanor, with amazing calm. When they push you to the limit, anger dissipates fast and leaves way to a nearly crystalline coldness. I asked, "Who should I apologize to?" Eleanor replied instantly, as if she had it prepared. "First to your husband. Whatever happens, you have no right to talk back to him at the table. Second, to me and Emily, for your rude attitude. It is not proper for a daughter-in-law to behave like that." I nodded slowly and looked at Mark. He remained immobile, with chin raised and gesture of one who awaits my surrender. In his eyes, there wasn't the slightest repentance. I asked, "And what about the slap yesterday?" Mark curled his lips. "Are you still going to keep on with that?" I replied. "Why?" "Because you didn't hit me in front of your mother and sister. Should it be the first thing forgotten?" Emily intervened immediately. "That's enough." My brother got upset. "Oh, who doesn't it happen to? And you have made a scandal in the whole family." I turned to her. Someone gets upset and raises his hand to his wife, and in your eyes, it's just a "who doesn't it happen to?" Emily fell silent an instant, and then raised her chin. "Don't twist my words." Eleanor, seeing tension increasing, hurried to intervene. "Sufficient. How many more times must we go around about yesterday? That won't resolve anything. I have called you here to find a way out. If you really want to save this marriage, you have to learn to lower your pride." I stayed silent a few seconds and asked, "To what do you refer specifically?" "Mother-in-law." Eleanor emphasized slowly each word. "First, you apologize to Mark and the whole family. Second, no more talking back like yesterday's. Third, after your leave, you go to the office and ask for transfer to a simpler position or leave work. Temporarily, this house cannot be chaos." I smiled inwardly. This was what they called talking nicely. It didn't consist in recognizing their errors, nor in trying to mend the relationship, but in recognizing their errors, forcing me to accept all their conditions with the pretext of saving the family. I turned my face slightly, leaving in view of the three the track of fingers on my cheek. "Look well. This is the price of not having known how to lower my pride." Eleanor blinked, but diverted her gaze immediately. "Don't exaggerate." I looked at her. "Do I exaggerate, or have you crossed the line?" Then Mark intervened with grave and harsh voice. "Have you finished talking?" I looked at him. "No, I still want to ask you something. Who authorized you to call my boss and discuss my resignation behind my back?" Mark doubted an instant, very brief, but I noticed it. He responded, "I am your husband." I saw what was best for the family and discussed it. I continued, "Best for the family, or to control me?" The atmosphere froze. Eleanor intervened hurriedly. How can you talk like that? Your husband worries about you, and you distrust him. I looked straight at her, secretly before the wedding. Emily looked at Mark with open mouth. It was seen that until that moment, she knew nothing of that. And Mark darkened even more. He hit the table. What is it you want, in reality? I replied at the moment without hesitating. I want respect. Mark smiled with disdain. Respect? After your behavior yesterday, you still de mon respect? I replied slowly. Respect is not something only those who bow down deserve. Those words left them mute. I pushed the chair back and stood up. Eleanor asked, restlessly, Where are you going? I said, I think this conversation has ended. Mark also jumped up. Sit down. No one has given you permission to leave. I looked at him with calm voice. You are wrong. From the moment you raised your braid hand to me, you lost the right to decide if I sit or stand, if I stay or go. Having said that, I turned around and headed for the stairs. At my back remained Eleanor's shouts, Emily's complaints, and the noise of the chair Mark had just thrown to the floor. But I didn't look back. I knew if I delayed a little, I would try to retain me again, and I already had it decided. I wouldn't stay, waiting for a second blow. I went straight up to my room. I closed the door, but didn't secure it. Immediately. My hands were firm and my heart was going 1,000 miles an hour, as if wanting to exit my chest. Downstairs, Mark's shouts were stronger and makey.ww.com. Stronger. He was furious. I understood that rage someone used to submitting, to being listened to, finds it very hard to accept someone standing before him with straight back. I turned and saw the suitcase near the bed. Everything important was ready since last night. Clothes, documents, money, chargers, laptop, and some indispensable personal effects. Only missing was deciding the opportune moment to leave the house. The mobile didn't stop vibrating. I opened it. 5 missed calls from Mark. 2 messages. Come down right now, don't force me. I read them, turned off the Bros Teammate screen, and sent a quick message to Jen. I'm leaving now. Jen called almost instantly. I answered, lowering my voice. I'm going to leave the house now. Jen asked me, Are you going alone? Want me to order an Uber? I closed the zipper of the suitcase and answered, Yes, please, fast. Have it. Wait at the end of the street, about 50 yards from the house. I don't want it. Right at the door. Jen didn't ask more questions. Okay. Driver arriving in 5 minutes. It's a gray Toyota Camry. Sending license plate now. I said, Okay, and hung up. In that moment, hurried steps were heard. Behind the door, Mark pounded the door with force. Sarah, open up. I breathed deep. I slung the document purse over my shoulder and locked the door from inside without making noise. Mark's voice became harsher. I'm telling you, for the last time, open the door and let's talk. I remained motionless in middle of room without answering. Eleanor intervened. Sarah, daughter, don't make a scandal. Let's talk everything calmly. I looked at the door without the slightest doubt. Since yesterday, I had heard, too many times, words like talk calmly, don't make scandal, or women must give in. But none of those phrases had been used to stop whoever raised his hand, but only to silence the victim. I said through the door, I'm leaving. Outside, there was silence a moment. Then Mark growled. You dare? I replied. What I don't dare is to stay. That is all. The blows on the door became more violent, making it vibrate. I took a step back, holding the purse strap. Mark hissed between teeth. "If you leave this house, no, need to return." I smiled bitterly, although he didn't see me. "Don't worry, I have no intention of doing so." Those words were like gasoline to fire. I heard him cursing clearly. Then, Emily's shrill voice. "Mark, she's just bluffing. If she's so brave, let her leave." Eleanor frightened. "Children, enough. The neighbors are going to hear." I opened the mobile and looked at Jen's message. The car was already there. I looked at the time and then the window. This room was on second floor with balcony toward back garden. No need to risk it. Only had to wait for them to get careless. I pushed the suitcase near door and waited a few seconds. The uproar, on the other side, started shifting downstairs. Seemed Eleanor was taking Mark.com, a way to avoid scandal getting bigger. At this moment, I opened lock very carefully and cracked door. Hallway was clear. I didn't waste time with suitcase. In one hand and purse in other. Went out fast, closed door behind me, and headed to service stairs at end of hall. That staircase led to back garden and was barely used because everyone went out front door. I went down with quick but firm step. Arriving at garden, stopped an instant to listen. Uproar continued in living room. Nobody had realized. I opened service gate and took suitcase to. Of street, morning air hit my face, cool and light. Enough seconds outside that house to feel chest depression relieved. I walked to end of street where a gray car waited. Driver lowered window. "Miss Sarah?" I nodded. "Yes, please open trunk." Just as I put suitcase in, phone rang. It was Mark. I looked at screen, didn't answer, and rejected call. Another entered, and then another more. I blocked his number in that same instant. Seated in back seat, I turned to look at street. It led to the house where I had married less than 2 days ago. Behind the fence, everything was silent. From outside, nobody would suspect what had just occurred. I adjusted my jacket, leaned back on seat, and let out long sigh. Car started moving. I knew that starting from that moment, I was no longer newlywed, nor daughter-in-law of that family, was simply me, a woman who was leaving on her own foot from biggest error of her life. Car left quiet street and incorporated into morning traffic. I continued seated, back with frozen hands despite sun. Mobile didn't stop vibrating in pocket, although had blocked Mark, didn't stop entering calls from unknown numbers. No, I need to guess whose they were. That family wouldn't let me go easily, not because they loved me, but because they couldn't tolerate someone escaping their control. I opened window a little. Air entered car, bringing smell of asphalt and familiar noise of engines, and resulted more pleasant than any moment passed in that house. Little more than a day ago, wore wedding dress, smiling at guests, and, believing entering cozy home, now went in an Uber with suitcase and trunk, face marked and pain in soul, but with ideas clearer than ever. Jen sent message. "Let me know when you arrive." I replied, "Okay." Then, after, doubting moment, added, "Thanks for everything." Answered immediately, "Don't talk nonsense. Come, and then we think." I looked at words and tears jumped. Sometimes a phrase so simple suffices to remember one isn't alone in worst. Au moment. 20 minutes later, car arrived at Jen's apartment complex in Stamford. I took out suitcase and looked up toward balcony of 12th floor. Jen already waited down. Upon seeing me, ran to hug me tightly without asking anything. I remained motionless instant and then returned hug slowly. Hadn't cried since last night, not for being stronger, but fear of not being able to stop if started. But, leaning on shoulder of friend, felt knot in throat. Jen separated little, examined face and hissed between teeth. It was him. I nodded. Her eyes reddened with rage. Bastard, said in low voice. Let's go up. Jen's apartment wasn't big, but cozy and tidy. Just entering felt as if heavy, weight removed from me. Jen took suitcase to spare room and said, Stay here all time you need. I sat on edge of bed, looking at that small, luminous room with study table near window, and suddenly felt tension decreasing. Really had gotten out of there. Jen brought glass of warm water and sat opposite. Now tell me, everything from beginning. I took few seconds and started relating it. Talked about dinner yesterday, how they forced me to attend Emily, requirement of Mark for me to leave work and his previous call to boss. Told about slap before whole family. How Eleanor pressured with good words to ask forgiveness. Mark's blows on door, and how this morning waited for me to lower head, as if guilty one. Jen listened without interrupting, tightening fists more and more. Upon finishing, showed photos, audio of dinner and boss message. Jen reviewed everything and raised head. Are you going to divorce? I didn't answer at moment. Looked out window, where beam of light entered floor. Barely 30 hours ago was newlywed, and now had to think about word divorce. Was bitter, but curiously had no doubts. Yes, I can't return there. Jen nodded firmly. Very well. Don't even think of returning. But must do everything right. You have proofs. Now need lawyer. I remembered. Name. Guarded last night. I think so too. I'll talk first with Dave, and if needed we look for lawyer. Jen asked. And parents already know? Shook head. Not yet. Didn't dare tell them being there for fear they worry, make scandal and be worse. For me. Jen sighed. Even so have to tell them. But better this afternoon. When, calmer. Now first thing rest, and eat something. Then organize everything. Nodded. Really needed to calm down, not to lament failed marriage, but take each step correctly. Mobile vibrated again. Another call from unknown number. Looked few seconds. And rejected. Few instants later, message arrived. Sarah, really dare to leave? Don't complain later if our family doesn't leave you in peace. Was Emily's? Number. Read and smiled bitterly. Even now, believed threats would make me return. Did screenshot, saved in proofs folder and blocked number also. Jen looked and asked, Who is it? Replied, My ex. Almost ex. Sister-in-law. Saying, first time since yesterday, felt strength to smile, but very conscious leaving. That house was only first step. Awaited long road, and that family wouldn't surrender easily. In afternoon, after eating quick pasta plate prepared by Jen, sat at table near, window to review and order photos, audios, messages, and notes. More organized, clearer saw. Everything occurred in less than 2 days seemed chaotic, but joining formed sequence, very clear and directed. From secret call of Mark to boss before wedding to requirement. leaving work using first dinner to test. Reaction, and then slap, and unanimous requirement of family to assume blame. Nothing had been casual, only I had trusted beautiful wrapping. Jen sat with me and helped draft timeline on paper. Have copy of marriage. Certificate? Asked. Nodded. In folder. Perfect. Said document list. Driver's license, employment contract, bank movements, messages, audios, photos of face. Gather all. More detailed, better. Took out papers from purse and put on table. Seeing pile of sheets, remembered night before wedding. Mom sat next and advised. Daughter, when marry, first thing have to think is, think yourself. At moment laughed, thinking worried too much. Only now, sitting here, understood some advice of parents. Only understood when suffering. Took mobile and dialed Dave's number. Tone sounded enough, before answered. Dave, it's Sarah, cousin of your wife. Voice sounded surprised. Ah, hello. Yes, clear. What happens, Sarah? Interchanged look with Jen and went straight to point. Need advice on marriage and corresponding procedures. My situation. Quite urgent. Dave kept silence instant and said, Yes, urgent. Tell me, roughly. Related briefly, just married, husband hit, pressured leave work, and indications of psychological and economic control, left house and had proofs. Upon hearing, tone of Dave became very serious. First thing have to do. Go right. Now to ER or urgent care for medical report of injuries. Second, keep all proofs in original format without editing. Third, if clear not returning, must put in hands expert family law. Will recommend excellent lawyer. Felt oppression, decreasing. Yes, many thanks. Dave added, from now on, if call or write, threats. Save all. And remember, don't meet husband alone. Only with people. In, front or public place. Replied. Understood. Upon hanging, Jen asked, how was it? Nodded. Recommended lawyer. Jen sighed. That's very good. At that moment, phone rang. Was Mom. Looked at screen and felt heavy pulse, although knew sooner or later had to tell. Arriving moment, heart shrank. Jen looked and said softly, answer. Can't hide always. Pressed. Accept. Mom asked. Instantly. Daughter, where are you? Call and don't answer. Note voice strange. Bit lip. All prepared words got stuck. In end, only could articulate sentence. Mom, am at friend's house. Other side silence made. Friends. Not husbands. House. Closed eyes. Mom. Have something to tell. Related everything. Without hiding anything. Without taking importance and without exaggerating. At beginning, Mom tried maintain calm, but arriving at slap at table, heard give, start and background arrived. Alarmed voice of Dad. Hit our daughter? Throat closed, but managed say, yes. Other side. Quiet few seconds. Then heard Mom. Break. Crying. That cry ended knocking down last barrier containment. Diverted. Look eyes misted. Dad took phone. Voice trembling. But tried sound firm. Daughter. Don't fear. Going there right now. Hurried say. Dad. Mom. Don't go. His house. Already left there. Am safe with Jen in Stamford. Going to do things. Right with lawyer and proofs. Don't go with rage. Fear serve only make bigger. Scandal. Dad kept silence. Then said slowly, "Okay, daughter. But remember one thing. Our family fears nobody. Don't have why endure any humiliation." Tears slipped finally cheeks. After call, stayed long time sitting silence. Jen said, "Nothing. Just put glass warm water in front." Knew no turning back. And, sincerely, didn't want return. Next day, got up very early. Perhaps tension last days. Despite tiredness, didn't manage sleep well. First sun rays filtered through blind Jen's floor, drawing line light floor. Sat moment on bed, touched cheek, silence. Track blurring, but contact still caused dull pain. That pain no longer frightened, was cold. Reminder, if showed weakness, everything repeat. Jen already active kitchen, hearing steps turned. Prepared some breakfast. Eat little then. Go urgent care, for injury report. Nodded. Sat opposite table, almost without speaking. Sometimes friendship needs no words. Breakfast. Hot morning. Hardest life sufficed. Feel wrapped. After breakfast, put simple clothes, gathered hair, and kept all papers purse. Before leaving looked mobile. Various missed calls, unknown numbers, and another message Mark sent from different number. If remain somewhat. Sensibleness, return talk nicely. Don't complicate things more. Looked screen, did screenshot and saved folder. Words seemed calm, but knew perfectly weren't. Peace offer. Was tone who still believes right, put limits others. Hospital busy morning. Notices PA system. Friction steps. And general hustle. Formed habitual environment. Sat row clutching purse, suddenly felt tired. Just few days choosing wedding dress, organizing family visits, thinking honeymoon never existed. Now was waiting room, awaiting injury report aggression husband. When doctor asked cause, doubted instant, and replied, "Domestic assault by my husband." Pronouncing phrase aloud stranger cost, but curiously, after felt more, relieved. Admitting truth, first step stop deceiving myself. After exam, doctor, confirmed existence. Hematoma, soft part zone, left cheekbone, slight inflammation, recommended observation. Held document reading every word, cold heart. Everything, registered, noted, confirmed. Starting moment. Nobody could treat simple chance. Upon leaving hospital, wrote Dave. Few minutes past, contact lawyer named Karen, Friedman with note. Tell going my part. Called immediately. Other side, answered woman voice serene clear. After listening, Karen cited office same. Afternoon. Said briefly. Bring all documentation proofs. Yes. Things as say. Sooner act better. Replied. Yes, okay. Upon hanging, stayed while door. Hospital. People passed long, each with life. Story. Few days happy wedding. Reduce now medical report appointment lawyer. Everything fast myself seemed nightmare. Jen sighed, asked softly. How are you? Looked medical report hand. Said, good. At least no due correct. Afternoon arrived Karen's office. Small office, orderly tranquil. Sat opposite. Went taking things purse. 1-1. Photos marks. Audio. Messages. Medical report. Conversation boss. confirming intromission, husband work. Karen examined all, attention, making brief questions precise dates. Upon finishing left papers, looked eyes. Done very well. Leaving there. Immediately. When marriage starts, violence control, case, attempt, return, serve, reinforce control. Stayed, listening silence. Continued. If clear want, finish. This prepare divorce. Demand. Principle don't let influence please. Late apologies pressures part. Asked. And yes. Start bother. Go parents' house office? Karen replied. Instantly. That play favor continue threats. Always document all. Starting now. Nothing meeting alone. Any contact. Only phone. Message through me. Nodded. Upon leaving office lawyer. Already falling afternoon. Street air. Brought heat. Dust. Felt mind cleared. Not because everything resolved, but first time since. Slap stopped. Feeling leaf dragged current. Had plan. Proofs. Legal backing. Friend parents behind. If family still thought return submissive wife, mistook, moment mounted taxi. 3 weeks later, divorce filing officially presented. Sat Karen's office, contemplating document folder each day, thickened more. Was. See? Remains. Storm. Whipped life. Photos face, medical report, audio dinner, threatening messages, Emily. Requirements. Mark even emails boss work intromission. All together. Weren't isolated incidents. Evident proof marriage error first day. Husband. Family didn't stay still. Beginning, Mark called ceaselessly hidden numbers. Not answering wrote, upset, sorry, don't make mountain. Let's fix family. Upon, following silence, tone past threatening. Think audio photos do want? Go. There, later don't blame. Read all, screenshots saved. One day, Eleanor arrived. Call mom, crying, complaining, rude, fled house, bad ways. Hurt son now pretended. Divorce just shame family. Mom limited answer. Daughter hit, right leave, hung, up. First time understood truth meant having unshakable support. Mediation court fixed shortly after attended Karen. Mark presented, accompanied, Eleanor. Emily didn't go. Hostility side remained intact. Mark didn't take eyes. Off whole time. Look mixture, rage, bewilderment. Perhaps didn't manage understand. How woman gave, yes sweet judge. Sat now opposite straight back, cold look. Judge. Asked. Agreement reconciliation? Replied total clarity. No. Asked motive. Because cannot continue living someone exercises, violence family considers, control submission normal. Mark hurried replicate. Was only once lost. Control, fled arming scandal. Even recorded all as planned. Looked first time, didn't feel pain. Seemed ridiculous. Asked if Day hadn't saved proofs. Admitted now, hit? Mark didn't know answer. Karen placed audio player table. Room silence. While clear voice Mark Knight resonated. Telling last time. Serve soup. Then, sound dry slap. Voice Emily saying, deserve. Words Eleanor asking, give in. Each sound fell silence. Small room scissor cut last thread lies. Starting there. Everything simpler. Process followed course. No longer dared. Pressure before. Although tried delay deadlines. Had no hurry. Returned work. Mr. Thompson kept word, allowed nobody interfere affairs. Jen continued leaving. Luminous room parents called daily, without burdens reproaches, reminding eat, well care. Months later, definitive sentence dictated. Left, court document. Hand, raising eyes, pale blue sky. Soft breeze caressed face. Track cheek, disappeared. Long time, understood something more important, physical healing. Saved myself. Didn't save marriage. Saved life, remaining destroyed. With time-centered work, rented small apartment near office. Weekends visited parents. Sometimes went. Movies Jen learned again, live tranquility. Without looking back. Haven't tane. Returned trust. Blindly beautiful promises, but haven't lost confidence myself. Failed marriage. Learned woman love whole heart. Obligation reserve always. Escape route. Mind cleared sense own dignity.